I am so excited to have yet another epic conversation on the Life at Full Blast podcast with someone who, yet again, I have only met about 4 minutes ago. I'm super excited to invite Tammy Cho to the show. She is a international best-selling author, self-love and energy leadership mentor, specializing in face and body analysis. We're going to talk about that. Human design and NLP, and she has been featured on some of the most major platforms in the world. Welcome, Tammy, to the show.
Hey, Cindy, thanks so much for having me here.
I'm so excited to just dive into a conversation and learn a little bit more about you and what brought you into this type of work. Because I'm certain weren't born as a face and body analyst.
Yes, very, very true. Yeah, my story started when, you know, which point do I start at? But like essentially, yeah, I used to be a nurse for 20 years. And I essentially went to work one day and I started having chest palpitations and
Mm.
chest pain that radiated up my jaw down my arm. And I, was struggling to breathe. And I essentially got wheeled off to emergency in front of all my coworkers at that time, which is, really embarrassing. But it was, the best place to be for something like that, being I was around nurses.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that was like, leading up to that, I kind of knew I was like totally burning out and losing my ability to concentrate and all these things. I was having a lot of high anxiety and I knew it, but I couldn't get myself to let go. It was
Mm.
that balance between knowing what's good for us and then actually following through with it. And so
Yeah.
that was a big thing for me to actually have the universe slow me down,
Mhm.
because that's what I needed to, really slow down and listen. But it did slow me down. But, my really, big awakening for me was like having my 6-month-old daughter on the one of those baby Einstein mats, Cindy. And she
Mhm.
intentionally hit one of those hanging toys for the first time. And I remember sitting there and I said, flatly, like, kids do that. Like, I just couldn't feel anything for my own child. And
Mm.
honestly, if it wasn't for this, like, angel in my life, it was a nurse that was visiting me postpartum that like told me that I wasn't connecting to my child the way other moms would were, right? So
Mhm.
that really awoken me that I, was essentially turning into my mom who left me at as a baby. But I didn't necessarily, I wasn't physically abandoning my daughter, but I was emotionally
Yeah.
abandoning my daughter,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, that was a big thing that really ignited me on my journey. Thank goodness before that, I did a little bit of personal development. So I kind of knew that, oh my goodness, I got to work on myself. And, and I did the whole counseling and therapy thing, of course. Right. But I also started
Mhm.
to try to like go into development courses and weekends, like almost every
Mhm.
month. And I was trying to master the mind with NLP way back then. And we all know that it doesn't happen at the mind.
Yes.
But that's where I was. And yeah, and I was, even back then, I became a millionaire in me and my husband's real estate business. And I was like so unhappy on the inside. I was like, shouldn't I
Mm.
be happy? Um, yeah, and I kept on going and I started doing all these different energy modalities. And I honestly like realized like when I stopped exchanging healings with people like 2 to 4 times a week at that time I was doing it, like I
Yeah.
still felt all the anxiety. I was still replaying the old patterns underneath. And
Mhm.
so at that point, I'm a truth seeker, so I kept on looking, and I essentially pulled in 4 years of emotional spiritual healing at that time, and I came across something called psychosomatic therapy, which was essentially, simply said, is a study of the body, mind, heart, soul together
Mm.
in alignment, and as it's expressed through our physical like features in our body. And so I realized prior to that, I was addressing everything in silo. I wasn't really doing it together. So that was
Mhm.
a big awakening for me. Yeah. And then at that time, I essentially saw that how my face and body showed me I was like really yearning for this love and connection. And another
Mhm.
part about my body was like really pushing it away. And
Right.
so, yeah, it helps me, knowing how to like what my body was saying to me physically really helped me see what was actually happening, and got me face to face with myself literally. Because one of the things that I do is face and body analysis, but like specifically, I usually start with the face, being that the left side of our face is this private world, um,
Mm,
part of ourselves, and the right side is what we show the world. And so there's these pieces that were really out of alignment in that area, right? And that's why I'm
mhm,
passionate about really helping people fall in love with their authentic self, overcome that imposter syndrome, to really open up to receive more flow of abundance and, health and, love for self and relationship and connection. Because I was also like pushing away my husband, and I didn't,
mhm.
it plays in one pattern, plays in one area, it plays in all the other areas. And so, yeah, that was a really big thing for me and how I came to do what I'm doing. So,
Yeah. There's so much that stands out about your story. And I love that, the holistic, because even when you speak about wealth, you can't be wealthy with just money. You've got to have the relationships and all those pieces. So it is this holistic look at life in general. So I love that. And, every conversation that I have on this show, every time I talk to somebody, there's always something that happened in your childhood or in your younger years that
mm.
led to where you are today. So thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, yeah, you're so welcome. It's so true. Our stories are gifts, really, to
Mhm.
mold us into what we're here to do, meant to do, and
Yes.
I think it's really beautiful because like in face and body analysis, I know you do a bit of do a lot maybe on numerology as well, right? I only do a bit, but how it pertains to the body. And it
Hmm.
really interesting how our life purpose and what shows up on our face, it's totally linked. So if someone
Hmm.
has some challenges in the heart center of the face around the eyes, it often points to specific numbers and what they're meant to work through, right? So it's like, makes sense once again with mathematicals of the earth
Yeah.
and universe, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a big piece. I think that realizing that our body is expression of our soul,
Hmm.
and that I could tell if someone's actually off purpose or if they're on direction with their purpose by the way they're walking. And so it's really,
Hmm.
yeah, it was really interesting to highlight that for people and to see that the very thing that's stopping them from their purpose is also causing pain in their knees.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's all like interconnected. I know you've probably been in this world a while, so this may not be as, out there for you as for
Well,
other people.
yes and no. I don't know that I've ever experienced, I've never been with somebody who does this particular type of work. So I think it's really fascinating because I've seen a lot of modalities out there, but I don't know that I've ever been told that you can determine if somebody's on purpose in their life by looking at their face. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's actually how someone walks, and that's
Right.
that's what tells me how they're being in the world and if they're
Hmm.
off direction or on direction.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's yeah, when I first heard about it, I had to, I was a nurse, so I was a bit skeptical back then, but
Right.
it was so accurate when it was being read for me, and I think there's something to be said around um, in healing work, right? We often do all this processing, but there's something different from being witnessed.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the powers of face and body analysis is the ability to actually see yourself for who you are and to
Hmm.
have it, spoken to you and witnessed. Like your whole emotional history is written in your body. Is the direct reflection of your thoughts and emotional histories, like your diary of conscious and unconscious emotions.
Hmm.
And I like that quote by Carl Jung, right? When until we bring the unconscious and conscious together, it will run our lives, and then we
Hmm.
will just call it fate. So it's so important to bring like what we're aware of, but also what we're unaware of. And I truly believe this is the next wave of leadership to learn how to tap into our subconscious as a self-empowerment piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Because I don't, so many of us say, well, I have these limiting beliefs, or this, I can't do this because this happened to me when I was younger, or, this is holding me back because I was traumatized when I was 20. And I firmly believe that we can move beyond that, that we don't have to let those things be excuses for why we can't have what we want and live life at full blast, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. And we're on the same page around that, and I have worked with some intuitive and healers, high achievers, right? And they, you could tell sometimes it's unfortunate that they're not actually in their bodies. And
Mm,
so it's really difficult to really, express your impact and the purpose you're meant to make if you're not actually connected to the body. Because if we're not connected to the body, we're not fully connected to the emotions as well. So it's
right.
not like, yeah, addressing things separately. And that's kind of what I see in some people that I work with.
Mhm.
Um, and as healers and intuitive, sometimes we're fixated on needing to fix ourselves. And just, the energy of that, right? Think about that. Like if you have that mindset that something's wrong with you
You're
and
always
you're
broken.
healing, yeah, healing
Yeah.
on that mindset, right? Then it's filtered through the energy of that,
Yep.
So it really dampens the effect and almost reinforces the pattern we're trying to remove, if that makes
Oh my
sense.
gosh, yes. I say this all the time. So I'm an ex-cocaine addict and I moved from one addiction to the next to the next to the next. And I became addicted to healing. I needed the next thing and the next thing and the next thing until one day I finally woke up and I was like, "Oh my God, what if I was just whole right now? What if there's nothing wrong with me?" And then everything shifted after that. And I'm a human being. I fuck up. I make mistakes. I sometimes look like my hair is poking in 12 million directions, and on social media, it doesn't always look as perfectly polished as it should, but I'm whole. I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me. And I think that message needs to be shared so loudly, like shout it from the rooftops. Everybody needs to know this. Because if you keep
Yeah.
chasing the next fix and the next fix, you're just addicted.
Yes. Yeah. It's so true, right? It's like it just transfers on to the next thing. And I think I work with a lot of high achievers, right? And that's what they're doing. The doing
Yeah.
becomes the addiction. Um,
Been there, done
like
that.
literally, right? Like, and I'm not perfect just because I know this. And like I
Mhm.
have moments I just had did like 3-layer healing on myself because it was like I was in a functional freeze. I caught myself, oh my, interesting. Like I knew this, but I wasn't doing it. And
Yeah.
I kept on, and it shows up all these like sneaky ways. And it literally came up where one part of it was like literally, fear to slow down to make that decision that I knew I needed to look at. And
Mm,
it was
mhm,
like that decision when I went into it was like literally I was a baby at that time, and it was she was afraid whether she should cry and ask for help versus not. It's just that sense
mm,
of indecision, like, because a lot of things happened when I was young and divorce and things like that, a lot of arguing, and it was just really interesting. And then that tagged on to another, deeper thing around hiding behind my sisters when we got hit. And even though I
mm,
knew the right things, I would always, stay safe. And
right.
we know that, like, if we stay safe, we're not going to move to the next
Yeah.
level of our potential because safety and moving beyond that is totally in contrast. So
Mhm.
it's this is why I think it's so powerful to be tapping into this deeper aspects of ourselves and not to say not feel fear because we're going to feel fear, but like to know that we're empowered to go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just anyway, I'm really passionate about that because I think a lot of people, even like sometimes, I know that not everyone's going to be an expert at everything. Like I understand
Mhm.
that, but I think just like having that piece that I could go in and go there with myself, like that ability to hold ourselves in that grounding and masculine energy and safety, right? It holds us to make more money and to ask for more of a raise or whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
We're on a journey of like expanding our ability to feel,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
know?
Exactly. Exactly. So if someone were to come to you and they said, "Okay, I'm struggling with, I don't know, making money in my online business." And so what would that look like if they wanted to do a face and body analysis with you? What would be the first step?
The first step is always the face analysis. And before the process, I mean, obviously I get people to send me pictures and obviously do this online after COVID.
Yeah.
But I get someone to tell me what their intention is. And usually
Mm,
from that, the energy always flows correctly to what needs to be brought up within the face
yep.
and the way that it needs to be brought up. And, because face analysis is essentially 4 to 6, equivalent of around 4 to 6 sessions of counseling and therapy, as measured by other therapists and counselors. And it's really like literally in your face, and it's right all there in
Yeah.
the first session. So
Yeah.
it can be a bit of emotional experience. And
Right.
if we think about things like self-sabotage and charging more, it's often about stepping into a new identity and dealing with underlying emotions. And
Mhm.
so it's not necessarily the reading in itself as it is the deeper work that accompanies it.
Right.
And then obviously the witness of self, and also how we are showing up in the sense of our embodiment. Because
Mhm.
people are out there trying to receive more money, yet they're, for example, like someone's shoulders can be entirely rounded in. And so we're actually the embodiment of living in fear versus opening up to receive. And
Right.
so very much like, you need to have in order to have a healthy, lifestyle, you need to eat well, you need to
Yeah.
exercise, right? Meditate, have downtime, have some fun, things like that. So it's like, we may work on mindset is one aspect, right? But we're
Mhm.
missing out on the embodiment piece. Sometimes it actually reinforces old patterns, even though we've worked through it
Yeah.
and things like that. So it's so important to bring the body in a more conscious and aware way, even in the way changing the way we walk. And
Mm.
so it's not one piece. It's never
Yeah.
one piece.
Yeah.
It's really bringing all these aspects together. And sometimes, my gift is being able to really, pinpoint things very quickly. And, I'm an empath, very much like probably a lot of people that are listening.
Mhm.
And I just have the ability to pick things up really quickly. And then the intrinsic parts of the pieces that they've healed through, and they're missing certain parts of the cycle, to like it's the mindset of an inner child that needs to bridge with another aspect of ourself,
Mhm.
with how we're actually choosing to breathe and how we hold our hips. So it's
Mm.
it's like it's very holistic, is what a lot of my clients say.
Yeah.
And
It's funny,
it's
I have the song stuck in my head, like the hip bone's connected to the
yeah,
let's go.
so true.
I
It's
think
so
it's
true, right?
connected to everything.
Yeah, and it's not just the modality of like working with someone. Like I like
Mhm.
to teach someone the connection of like, all the synchronicities that happen all around us, and
Yeah.
how when we walk and we do yoga, I do martial arts, I can see that when I punch, how connected I am to my grounding.
Mm,
And it's
mhm.
like it's painted in these interconnected ways. And so a lot of people say I'm too busy to do all these things, but really it's all connected. So when we start to align our life this way, it becomes, very time efficient,
Yeah,
because it's
exactly.
spiritual efficiency. That's what I like to call it.
I love that. Spiritual efficiency. That is good. That is good. Okay, so I have to ask you though, like, do you literally just walk around and see people and go, "Oh, I know what's going on with you. Oh, I know what's going on with you."
Like in the beginning when I learned this, like more so, like now I see it more like a boundary. That's someone else's space.
Mhm.
But if something jumps out, like if I'm on a call with someone, I don't really say anything, unless I'm intuitively guided, and I always ask for permission.
Yeah.
Because yeah, like I often know that's exactly what they need to hear. And I can't help it. Sometimes I go on calls and I see so much, and I'm like, oh, it's hard to back.
They didn't
Um,
ask. They didn't
so
ask. Shh, shh.
yeah, but it's like, not like just because I see things doesn't mean someone wants to know it, right?
Yes,
There needs to
exactly.
be a receiving and a willingness and wantingness, whatever that is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Consent is
So
everything.
yeah, yeah,
I love that. I just think, it doesn't matter what modality you're using. I mean, I see this all the time in numerology and the work that I do. You pick up on stuff and you're like, oh, I see that. I see that. I see that. So I just had to know if it was the same with the work that you're doing. So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's so true. Like yeah. I mean, I think people don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yep.
And so that is like where we need to start from at the end of the day. Doesn't matter. These modalities are modalities.
Yes.
It doesn't make one better or the other, is whatever the person actually needs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think in this work, we're so heart-centered, right? It's really
Mm.
trying to get ourselves out there. And I feel like this is why I moved from calling myself a healer to a coach,
Hmm.
because there's a different energy there. And I think that is a necessary ingredient to help someone see that they have their own power, to
Yes.
step into these pieces and to show them how to harness their innate power, not for helping other people, but helping themselves. Because
Hmm.
you only help someone as much as you help yourself. And
Exactly.
yeah. So anyway, I don't think I'm saying anything new here. I just see you
Yeah.
nodding away.
Yes, and the human brain needs to hear it a bazillion times in order for it to sink in finally. So, and I know that we hear things differently every time we hear the same message, we hear it differently because we're in a different mind space, a different energetic space. And so, I
Yeah.
think these conversations need to be had over and over and over again. So, thank you for sharing everything with us today. How do people find you? If they want to book a session with you, where would they go?
Yeah, I mean, definitely I will give you the links, but essentially on my website, I have some free resources, or the resource page, I should say, and I have something called "What Does Your Face Say About Your Self Leadership?"
Mm,
And it's like an opportunity to experience like a 5 video series to experience that.
hmm
There's also a way to actually book a face analysis inner awakening session with myself on
hmm
there as well. I also have my own podcast called Authentic Leaders Rising.
hmm
And it's a place that I basically share my stories. I have people come in once in a while, but it's definitely a place to like, how do you experience more joy and fulfillment and all that without needing to do more, and to really step into your purpose and living your higher purpose. And so that's where I hang out quite often as well. And
Yeah.
I'm also on social media. And so feel free
Mhm.
to direct message me or just contact me on my website if you just want to have a conversation and keep it casual to just see where you are at. Yeah, on your journey and what might be, the piece that you need to, go towards, so to speak.
I love it. I love it. So you are everywhere. That's good. That's good. It's holistic. That's good.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
thank you so much for today's conversation. I am definitely going to go and check out your website. I'm fascinated by this face analysis thing. Anything that you'd like to share with the audience before we end our conversation today?
So as I'm just tuning into what I need to say, and I'm hearing that a big part of what the audience needs to hear is really this confidence piece. It is birthing of the solar plexus to awaken more layers of it. I feel like there's yeah, the message is like, you there is more for you, and keep looking deeper. And
Mhm.
it is breathing into the solar plexus. That's what's coming up for me.
Okay.
So yeah, allow that to like come in and infuse, your body, bring the breath and consciousness into that. And yeah, I'm curious to hear, what you got from that.
Yeah, I love that. The whole concept of life at full blast is to express yourself fully. And that takes confidence, it takes courage, it takes being bold. So it makes sense that that would come through for this show. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yes, thank you.